Okay, take three. So the last couple, my software has been updating, and so, anyways, long story short, we are now on number three. So today, what I want to show you and talk to you about is finding opportunities. And really, what I want to start with is kind of the problem that I'm seeing in the market today, and that is if you're an investor and you're new to commercial real estate, the story I hear often is there's no good deals in my market. And these are a lot like frequently it's people across Canada, not as many in Calgary and Edmonton, but definitely a lot in Victoria, Vancouver, the GTA, Ottawa. And so they're really stretching. They're going into these secondary and tertiary markets. Tertiary meaning like a town of 5,000 or less. And while there's nothing wrong with going into smaller towns. I mean, I have my own opinions, and it really depends on the type of asset that you're buying and developing. Right now, we have two retail projects in communities that are under 10,000, but we are leasing them to like international companies, and so we feel very comfortable with that. But I would imagine most people that are entering the world of commercial real estate are not doing deals with Starbucks as an example. Okay. So here are a couple of strategies that hopefully you can take away. And I want to kind of talk about what I feel is the root problem of where new investors are struggling. And that is they are doing what I call like passive or lazy investing. And I don't mean lazy in the sense that they're not putting in the time and energy, they are. But when I started back in the day, probably back in, I don't know, whatever it was, like 2007, really getting into commercial real estate, and I would meet with my father in law, if I was bringing him deals that could easily be found online, it was I don't know how else to put it other than he would just look at them and say, like, Shane, you're not going to find great deals just doing what everybody else is doing. Like, you have to dig, you have to do things that other people are not prepared to do. Get on a friggin' plane, drive, go look at things, and essentially like get out of your office. You have to really be present in the markets that you're looking to invest in. And if you want to go to Houston, then get on a plane and fly to Houston. If you want to go to Phoenix, then go into Phoenix, spend a week there and research and understand it. And these were, not what I wanted to hear, because certainly I wanted to, connect with people on LinkedIn and make phone calls and do what I thought was busy work, but it really wasn't as effective as it could have been. All right. And really, when you start to drill down on what moves the needle in commercial real estate, is deals are going to flow to people that have a track record, right? And so if you don't have a track record, then that is going to be a challenge. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. There's other ways to leverage not having a track record, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I can tell you right now, I'm seeing anywhere from 2 to 5 deals at least every single week that are good opportunities, and they're just flowing my way. And it's because obviously I've been at this for a long time. If you don't have that, then where do you start? What would you do? So what I'm going to give you are what I would consider to be kind of like a 7-step. So it's a 2-stage, 7-step process for finding deals. All right. Now I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll get into that. All right. So the first one is this kind of starts like what I would call like pre-deal flow. And pre-deal flow is really like getting ready. So the D, I'll just get up my, what you call it here. Okay, so D right here is debt. This is one of the first things that I would suggest doing. It is talking to, okay, my audio is working. It's talking to a mortgage broker, ideally a mortgage broker, to find out how much you can qualify for. Why is that? First, because once you know how much debt you can basically borrow, then you'll know how much equity you need. All right. Now, the second part is understanding the game. I'm not going to go too deep into this. Really, it's like, can you speak the language that brokers, lawyers, mortgage brokers, like, do you understand what cap rates are, IRR, cash on cash, DCR, like just a lot of the terminology that's being used? And the reason for that is it gives a certain level of comfort and confidence to investors knowing that you understand the game, right? So when you're using the terminology correctly, that's very important. Next, The third, right? So this is all in pre-deal flow, is finding someone you can trust. And this, you can see how they all layer together, but knowing the game is going to help you to figure out who you can trust. If you don't understand the game, then it's easy for people to essentially BS you into information that may or may not even be accurate. All right. And I would always ask the question, how is a person being compensated? Right? If they are a broker, just appreciate the fact that they're paid to sell you a property, right? And so they may have the best intentions in mind, but they are only paid for selling a property. They're not paid for trying, they're not paid for educating, they're not paid for any other reason if they're a commission-based salesperson, which most brokers are. All right? That's not to say that you can't trust them. I'm just telling you, understand that if they're giving you information and it's based on their ability to or they live and breathe by selling properties, then you may want other alternative sources of information as well. And so for me, I'm always trying to triangulate where I can get the best information, right? That could be from a mortgage broker, that could be from the actual broker showing me deals, that could be from leasing agents, property managers, planners, other investors, right? I'm always talking and trying to source that information. All right. So those are the first three pre-deal, right? So you got to get ready. How much money do you have? You have to understand the game, and then finding someone you can trust. Once you have that foundation, then let's move into entering your market. And by that, what I'm talking about here is, it sounds like I'm like I'm saying the same thing, but you'll see how important this is. This is about getting clarity. And what I mean by that is, what the heck do I mean by S? Sometimes I write these things. Okay, you need to know how much money you have. So that comes from the first part. The location, what city are you investing in? What is your strategy in terms of, are you doing value add? Are you finding existing assets? Are you doing development? These are all extremely important in terms of figuring out where in the market. Oh, S is, I think it means the size of the deal. But that really kind of ties into the money. What I would say here is the size of the deal. Like if you know that your deal size is 2 million, then you should have a pretty good idea that it is in Calgary, for example, like a 10 unit apartment building, multifamily, or like a 7,000 square foot industrial building based on the price per square foot or price per door. All right. So that is clarity. Understanding the market at kind of a high level. So when you're talking to brokers, you're not wasting their time. Next is deal flow. Now, one of the things that I do personally, all right, so I'll just explain kind of how I get my deal flow, is I am constantly looking for a way to connect and see deals first before they get listed. And the reason that's so important is the best deals, right? Brokers know that they want to double end the deal, especially in commercial real estate. Now, I'm not going to talk about whether or not, the legalities of double ending. The reality is in commercial real estate, it happens frequently. And so when you introduce an outside broker, it generally, the listing agent generally doesn't like that, right? They don't care as much if the buyer is going to pay the fee to their representative. However, in most cases, that just adds more friction to your deal. So generally, I want to see deals first, which means that I need to be talking to people that are showing and have deal flow. And the reason that I'm going to see deal flow is because of this, first of all, right? Because I have clarity. It's because likely I've been introduced to that person from someone else. That's key. I know the game and I have my money ready, right? So because I have these three, I'm able, and I have clarity. Now, when I start talking to people, I am taken seriously. And that is probably one of the biggest things, because for both sellers as well as brokers, deal certainty is probably at the top of the pyramid, if you will, in terms of importance. Okay, and so deal certainty is, if you tie up my property, are you going to close? All right. Next, I would say is urgency. This is probably, I was commenting on Twitter the other day in terms of, I can't remember, someone was talking about commercial real estate investing and traits and characteristics. And I just basically said, actually, I think the person said something along the lines of like a sense of urgency. And I responded by, excuse me, saying that a sense of urgency is, in my opinion, the one common trait that I have seen among every single successful commercial real estate investor. And so, what does that actually mean? It means when you see a property that you act fast. Like, did I go out and like if I get a phone call and I like a property, unless it's I've got too many other things on the go, I will literally get in my vehicle, go drive by and look at it that day, or my business partner will. One of us is going to look at it. If we like it, we're on the phone and it's like prepare an LOI or we have an LOI and we're going to submit because these good opportunities, they don't last. And I think that that's probably one of the challenges for newer investors. Maybe not because, let's face it, even the residential markets these days are crazy hot. But what I would say is once you have that kind of foundation and you understand how to play the game, you will take that action necessary to at least control the deal. And what I mean by control the deal is you're going to put it under contract so that you can start to really refine it and tweak it. All right. The last is learning your market fast. I would say that this is something that is something I've kind of experienced, and that is frequently new investors are used to getting information for free, right? They talk to their residential realtors and they go on the MLS and they're able to get a lot of data and research for free. In the world of commercial real estate, that insight is extremely valuable. And so people are not going to give it away for free. And so frequently what ends up happening is it's why there's insiders and outsiders, right? The outsiders that are looking for that free information generally get very poor information. I don't want to swear, but you know where I'm going with that. And it's the insiders that are subscribed to CoStar, right? That are taking people out for ski days or golfing or, call it schmoozing or whatever you want to call it, relationship building. The reality is they're investing heavily to be able to get that intel. And that's how the game is played. I wish I could say it was something else. I wish that there was some hack and some secret way to get this type of information without paying and just, I suppose the if you don't want to pay, you could literally go and knock on doors and pull title and do all that. But there is a price to pay for that, right? It's time and frankly, even when you're pulling title, you're going to pay money for that. So really, the best way in my experience is to just be associating with people that are in the world of commercial real estate. And look, people have no problems paying for an accountant, a lawyer, a teacher, a doctor. And so in the world of commercial real estate, you're probably not going to pay money to commercial real estate brokers, although that is an option that you could certainly, put yourself up above others that are looking just for free information. Say, look, can I buy 2 hours of your time, right? Can I sit down with you and really understand this market? I want to get into multifamily in the Beltline. You're the go-to person, right? Like I can think of off the top of my head, one guy here in Calgary, if I was doing wood frame under 30 units, he's the guy I'd talk to. And I've had many coffees and lunches with him. And at the end of the day, I would pay $500 an hour easily to sit down with him because he has 30 years of experience and he probably does. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure he's sold between $500 and $1 billion of these small wood frame multifamily. Okay. So how do you put all this together? I guess a couple of principles, right? And that is number one, focus where others are not, or they're not willing to. And so ideally what I'm talking about here is if you're prepared to build relationships and get out of, it's my daughters have learned the word hypocrite. And so they're using that on me every time I say something and I don't follow through. So here I am in my office, but frankly, I'm in my office right now because I was out earlier today, doing what it is that I'm sharing with you, which is like play hockey, golf, ski, go for coffee, go for lunches. The reality is, it's when you get out of the house and you meet with people, especially now, obviously with COVID, it was a lot more difficult. But certainly, every opportunity I get, I am out and trying to just continue to build those relationships, right? Even the fact that I'm doing this right now, this Facebook Live, is, and which will get turned into my podcast, it's another way for me that you get to see my face. And for some people, this will add some value, right? For others, they've already tuned out. That's fine. I know that it's not going to be for everybody, but the goal is to add value, and then eventually it comes around, right? I've been doing this for close to 3 years now, and it's one of the ways that I see deals, right? Most of the deals are junk, to be quite frank, but it doesn't take that many. One or two opportunities is all I need to do very well in commercial real estate. And so I'm prepared to invest up front, knowing that it'll come down, it'll come back down the line. All right. So invest in making the connections. Yeah, I think I've already kind of beat that down. So the actions or the takeaways, if you will, starting at the very beginning, figure out how much money you're going to need and understand. Maybe I'll phrase it a different way. How much debt can you support, right? This is a conversation I had with a gentleman that's in my coaching program right now. And I said, he wanted to see this deal that I was looking at. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'll show it to you. I said, but just appreciate that I don't want you reaching out if you can't support an $11 million loan, because that's roughly how much debt is going to be required here. So please, do the homework up front, figure out how much you can qualify for. And if you can qualify for 11 million, then absolutely have the conversation. But if you can't, then there's really no point in having that conversation, because all it does is it diminishes and takes away from your credibility, right? There's lots of deals that are sent to me in the 20 to $50 million range. And it's like, could I figure it out? Maybe, but that's really outside my wheelhouse, and I'm competing with people that just have a much lower cost of capital. So I know that I'm not going to be competitive. It doesn't make sense for me to compete against those people, right? My sweet spot is in that $5 to $20 million range. All right. Next is location. This is where I think I'm seeing a lot of investors that are going into these markets that are like, 10 hours away from where they live. They have no person in that market they can trust, and they're trying to gather information. And so they're doing it from the comfort of their home. And unfortunately, a lot of that data is dated and unreliable, right? And so really what happens then is, if you don't have information you can count on, it's very difficult to feel comfortable to pull the trigger fast, right? The reason I can move so quickly here in my backyard and the markets I'm in is because I already know what the rents are. I know what vacancy is. I know what new developments are going on. I know what rental rates are. I know what the debt is. Like I'm so plugged in that in a very short amount of time, I literally just got off the phone with a guy. He said, look, this is my property. These are the lots. It's 12,000 square feet. What's the FAR? 2.5. Here's what I can offer, right? Like within a range, right? I mean, I didn't give him like a pinpoint number, but I was able to break it down and justify it because I knew the market. Could I do that in Toronto? Absolutely not. I couldn't do it in Vancouver. I probably couldn't even do it in Edmonton, right? But I can do it in my backyard. So once you get to that stage, that really does give you a level of confidence, and it also gives you the ability to move fast. So after you got your money figured out, where you're investing, what strategy are you going to invest? That could be value add, that could be development, that could be just buying core assets, right? I'll tell you just kind of briefly, a lot of the, not a lot, investors that approach me to try to buy assets that I'm building, right? So my townhome project right now, I'm having a conversation with some people in Toronto right now because they can't find anything local. And so they look at something with a 4.5 cap, brand new, shiny, in a great location. And they say, hey, I'd be very interested in that, right? My retail property, a very low 5 cap. And so this is okay for them, right? I mean, if you're worth 7 or 8 figures, then you're looking for kind of a good steady 7 to 8% cash on cash return without the risk and headache of having to develop these projects. That's great, right? Just know where you're at. What skills do you have, or what skills do you need? How much time do you have? And then who are you going to use to help you, right? So I think that that is really what I wanted to share with you. Hopefully that is helpful. Let me see how to get out of this right now. Back to this. As always, if you have questions or you have a project that you're working on and you want to, get, I mean, I'm not going to be able to give you kind of in-depth advice and insight, if you will, but I will certainly share my thoughts, especially if I think a deal is just, if I would never do a deal, I'll tell you that, right? It's up to you to make the decision. This isn't investing advice. This is just, a guy that's been doing this for a little while, and I have a lot of opinions. Doesn't mean they're right. So take it with a grain of salt. But if it helps you and helps you avoid kind of a mistake, that is really why I share these videos. So that's all I got. Bye for now. See you next week.